Mic check. Peas and carrots, paella. Hi, I'm Ashley Daigle, and this is Advice from the Cheerbrarian. Never heard that word before? That's because I smushed two words together, because I felt like it. This week, we're going to do what we always do, mix a dollop of advice to improve your life, born from a few of my successes and a boatload of my mistakes, with the book recommendation of the week, unearthed by my voracious love of reading, from self-help to historical fiction and everything in between. Today, we are going to talk more about the quest for happiness, but this time from a new vantage point, by staring happiness square in the eye and asking it, "What's your deal, huh?" If you like what you hear, and I really hope you do, please, pretty please, with 2 cherries on top, tell 2 people about this podcast and send them a link to an episode you enjoyed, because direct word of mouth is huge for a little pod like mine. And now, let's have a chat. Do you think of yourself as a generally satisfied or unsatisfied person? I want you to keep that at the forefront of your mind as we have our conversation today, because today is part 2 of my happiness series, and we are going to investigate unhappiness and how maybe unhappiness gets a bad rap. Yeah. But first, I have a reminder. I have issued a summer reading challenge. That challenge is very simple. If you set a summer reading goal, any goal, and you meet it, and you tell me about it, I will send you, wait for it, a piece of snail mail thanking you for your commitment to reading. Also, it will contain stickers. I know you're like, wow, and stickers? Yeah. I'm not going to send you a bill. That's what people get in the mail, right? That's a bummer. No. Personal note thanking you for your commitment to reading. Why am I doing this? Because reading is awesome. So if you need help thinking about what could your reading goal be, you could go ambitious. So read 3 books, one for each month of summer. You could do what I would call dedicated and say, I'm going to read 1 book, right? You could say, I'm going to be realistic and I will be reading half a book, and that is my goal. You could simply say, I'm going to read more, whatever that means. So maybe it's more this summer than you did last summer. Guess what? If you didn't read last summer, well, then that makes that pretty achievable, doesn't it? You could say you're going to read more outside, or more in the morning, or more at night. Whatever you want to do, any way you want to define it is great, because I'm just trying to give you a little boost, make a little goal, something that is so achievable so you can get that sweet, sweet dopamine release, which will teach your brain that pursuing goals can be fun. And you will have read more, which is like having an opportunity to get people to read more books is just, it's why I'm doing this podcast, right? So now we're going to get into the unsolicited advice. And we're going to frame it up by looking at what we talked about before. So in episode 11, which was the confusing climb toward happiness, we took some steps into understanding happiness, what it is, how we can maybe find more of it, though, it's not like loose change. So it's not, easily found under a cushion. It is a tricky, sticky wicket. That's fun to say. Tricky, sticky wicket. One more time. Tricky, sticky wicket. Say what? Okay. Anyway, so when we first talked about happiness, I talked about my girl, Brene Brown, and her definition is that happiness is a measure of satisfaction with your immediate circumstances. She also talks about how genetics come into play. So each person has sort of a baseline for happiness that they have based on who they are and how they were born. And, you can only adjust it so much, right? I also gave 3 unsolicited happiness principles. So I told you should not ask yourself if you're happy, because, that's just asking for trouble. And that you should not mistake positivity for happiness and presume that positive people are happy and somber people are unhappy. And I want to talk about that second principle for a minute, because I feel like rereading that, my happiness prejudice is showing, because right there, I'm reaffirming the dichotomy of being happy is good and being unhappy is bad. And that's not what I meant to do. That wasn't my point. Because, if your circumstances aren't great and your genes are working against you, well, there might not be a lot you can do to raise your happiness quotient and make yourself just a little bit happier. So, what we're going to do today, instead of focusing on that, we're going to flippity flop it, and we're going to look at what unhappiness can mean. So, today, I am giving you express permission to exist, wallow in a state of unhappiness. Just grump it up, grumble, Grr. So let's signify this turn. So let's let out a happy, excuse me, unhappy exclamation of your choice. So mine is this. Bleh. That was mine. You could yell out a swear word if that's your thing, but like whatever you want to do to just sort of sink in to owning some unhappiness today, let's do it. Okay. That felt nice. It did, making that blah, whatever sound I made. So we have now put on our metaphorical unhappy pants. We're going to sit in them today and we're going to think about why do we think it is bad to be unhappy and good to be happy? Why are we supposed to even be caring about that? So here are my theories. So number one, social media. So we've talked about this before, but social media is showing us all a sanitized view of people's lives. So that makes your brain think, man, I should be as happy as these people are because you're seeing, quote, I'm doing air quotes. You can't see them. Just imagine me wiggling my fingers. You are seeing these happy people as portrayed on social media, and you feel like, well, there must be something wrong with me because I'm not that happy. But guess what? That's not real. We know it, but I just want to repeat it. It's not. What you see on social media is a selected highlight snippet of a beautiful moment that could have been an otherwise just disaster of a day, right? Another reason that we sort of label being unhappy as bad is that you might feel pressured to be grateful for your circumstances. I feel that I come from a place of relative privilege, and so because of the lot in life that I have based on geography, luck, and some skill, I don't have to worry about money or getting food on the table and a lot of things that plague other people. So I think, well, I should be happy because I don't have any real problems or I don't have any things to worry about. But other people having it, again, air quotes, worse than you do, doesn't mean you can't be frustrated or unfulfilled by your own situation. You don't have an obligation to force yourself into happiness because luck has given you advantage. Okay. And then the third theory why this plagues us is that sometimes you might be worried about being unhappy because, I can't be this way. I've got to do better for my partner or my kids or my coworkers. I got to put on the happy face. But guess what? You are not responsible for the feelings of everyone around you. I'm going to repeat that because it's important and I stumbled in the middle. You are not responsible for the feelings of everyone around you. You cannot be. You cannot change them. So that is little thing to keep in your back pocket. That wasn't a full stack of pancakes. That was like a silver dollar set. Those silver dollar pancakes for today is that you're not responsible for other people's feelings. What does all this amount to that I've been talking about? Well, I want to ask a question. Can you be perfectly unhappy? Can we be satisfied with unhappiness? So rather than try to maybe shove someone who is genetically or historically predisposed into feeling like they have to fake it till they make it in a society that rewards like positivity and chipperness, what else could you do? What is possible? So I have two resources I am so excited to share because they mean a lot to me. And guess what? They're things to read, but they're not books, and we're not even to the reading section because that's just how today's going to go. But we have two authors who have proudly owned their unhappy monikers and have great advice that I'm going to share with you. So the first is an article titled How to Live Unhappily Ever After by Augustin Burroughs. So he is well known for his memoir Running with Scissors that was published, I think like 2002-ish. And so in this article, and I will share a link, he shares the upside of being downbeat. So, in his own words, he says, being an unhappy person does not mean you must be sad or dark. You can be interested instead of happy. You can be fascinated instead of happy. So, what he's suggesting is like, I'm not even worrying about happiness as a measure of my day or my value or my life. I'm more concerned with experiencing these other emotions. Takeaway from that is to let go of trying to be happy and just be whatever you are instead and own that in the moment. Another tidbit I want to highlight from his essay is this. So he says, just giving yourself permission to feel any emotion without judgment or censorship can lessen the intensity of those negative emotions, almost like you're letting them out into the backyard to run around and get rid of some of that energy. I love this because this also ties into principles of meditation, which I will talk about in future episodes because I love meditation. I think it can be helpful. But the point is, sometimes you are trying so hard to not be or feel the thing that you are that you're just making it worse. You're not, by identifying it and like setting it free, as he said, it loses some of its power and you can sort of be on the outside. If you're just like trying not to be angry, I mean, has that been successful? If you have ever successfully just sort of willed yourself out of being angry, please let me know how. But if, you're frustrated with something and you say, I'm angry about this, it allows you to see it from a different perspective. I want you to try this. So, is there an emotion that has been lingering in you today that you've been trying to squash or ignore? You've been, scrolling social media so you don't have to engage with that feeling, perhaps? I don't know. I heard people do that, not me, other people. Okay. Maybe today you are unhappy or frustrated or you feel lost or scared. Take a moment and whatever that icky feeling is you may have been avoiding, say it out loud. I'll give you a second. I'll take a deep breath. That was nice. And I guarantee if you, like he said, set it free in the yard, say it out loud, you will feel just a teeny bit better. That's my promise to you. So the other work I want to talk about unhappiness is an online cartoon titled "How to Be Perfectly Unhappy" by Matthew Inman. And at the end of it, he says, like, this is directly inspired by Augustine's work. So I think it's really cool that you've got this article to look at and then a comic representation. What Matthew Inman did, aka the Oatmeal is his moniker online, is that he sort of took the article and distilled it and applied it to his own life. So what he had to say about it is, I'm not happy because our definition of happy isn't very good. It's a monochromatic word used to describe a rich, painful spectrum of human feeling. Very interesting. So in his, comic, he goes on to say other things that he is instead of happy: joyful, curious, fulfilled, compelled, interested. And so he closes out the cartoon by saying, I'm not unhappy. I'm just busy. I'm interested. And that's okay. He has decided not to subscribe to sort of this happiness, maybe sometimes toxic positivity culture. And he's like, I came into this world unhappy. And if that's what you want to call it, that's fine. But I am a lot of other things. And, I recently had what I would describe as a bout of the unhappy grumps. I am generally, I am more genetically predisposed for happiness. That's just me. But I had a spot where, nothing seemed to be giving me joy. I had this real, like, what's the point of it all vibe settle over me, like a nice cozy blanket. And, I was hanging out with a friend, not really interested in doing much of anything. And they said, hey, let's watch this We're the World documentary on Netflix. I'm going somewhere with this, I promise. And so this was, the song We Are the World, which was recorded in order to raise funds for poverty in Africa. It was a huge deal, all these superstars in the same room. And so Netflix just churned out a documentary about it. And she's like, we should watch this. And I was like, I don't care about this. Like, why? Like, what? How is this going to help me? Like, just, I was in this headspace very focused on like outputs and like, what am I doing? What am I contributing? So I sat there going, okay, fine, we'll watch this. But, by watching it, I learned about a magical night where like over 20 of the, music superstars at the time got together and did this beautiful thing. Did watching it make me happy? Not really, not by any definition, but it made me interested and it made me curious and honestly, like a little moved. And now when I hear that song, or even when I hear any of those artists sing, I think about the confluence of things that had to happen for all of that to take place and what a beautiful night it was in those people's lives. And I also think about how gloriously cool Lionel Richie was, and always will be. So I say that to say, maybe more experiences like that is what it's all about. Like, where can you find ways to be curious and engaged and less focused on being happy? And I'm going to close this out shortly, but I just wanted to say that I really enjoyed like thinking about this today and crafting this segment. And I hope it's given you some new things to think about, a bit of food for thought, such as, a big, delicious stack of fluffy pancakes, perhaps. And now we're going to talk about a book. Yay! In today's unrequired reading, we are going to take a peek at a life that by all outward appearances is happy, but really it is anything but. Today's book is Family Happiness by Lori Colwin. And yes, it does delight me to pick a book with happiness in the title. And I think it's a perfect one for this episode. First, though, I want to tell you a little bit about Lori Colwin. She is a writer that I had never heard of, and she died suddenly at the age of 48 of an aortic aneurysm. She was sort of just beginning to make her mark literarily. So in the 1980s and the 90s, she was really well known for her nonfiction food writing, but her fiction captivated audiences with her realistic portrayals of womanhood and life in New York. And so that's where that book takes us. So womanhood and life in New York. But what is it about? This is the story of a, let's say, crisis of character for Polly. Polly has all the trappings of a successful life. So she comes from a good family. She has a successful lawyer husband. She's the mother to two beautiful children. She has a job outside the home, but her husband and mother sort of downplay that as like, her little hobby that she does. And so she is defined by being the perfect caretaker for her family. But Polly is secretly very unfulfilled, and so she begins an affair with a family friend. So something interesting about this book, and I keep flipping back and forth to make sure. So I don't believe Colwin ever pins this novel in a particular year or even decade. So some of the details about, reaching out to people and telephones and things date it like a little bit, but by not pinning it anywhere, it really gives a timeless quality to the novel. And I keep using the word, it wasn't, the happiest book to read about a woman, in a emotional crisis, but I really did like her story and understanding more about her. So it was actually really similar to reading about Dicey and the Tillerman cycle, which is, Cynthia Voigt's YA series that I recommended 2 episodes ago, as we watch Polly wrestle with isolation and obligation and like a personal awakening, which is exactly what happens to Dicey. So we see Polly come to terms with her choices and sort of the weight of family obligations as she decides where and how and even if she can make a stand for like her own wants and needs. Overall, I really liked this book and the writing, and I really wish that Colwin had had more time to gift us with her thoughtful and introspective novels. And now it is about time to say fare thee well. So that's it, today's episode. I love a little recap because life is busy and I want you to have something to take with you. So what the heck did we do today? The unsolicited advice of this episode was to put on your unhappy pants and realize that being happy maybe isn't all it's cracked up to be, and maybe you can be perfectly unhappy. And sometimes you gotta let those negative emotions take a lap around the yard. In unrequired reading, I recommended Family Happiness by the acclaimed and unfortunately short-lived Lori Colwin. And please follow and review wherever you pod, and join the Cheerberry on Instagram or Facebook by following me at the @Cheerberry handle. That's where you can see resource links and other goodies, and communicate with me, which I would love. Now go on, get out of here, take a walk, drink more water. Okay, bye!